Yeah, there you go. Now you broke. All right, it's right about noon. I'm Bill Wright with the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum here. I'm the museum coordinator, and I'm going to introduce Laurie. I would introduce everybody, but I wouldn't have a voice left probably. Oh, okay, she's got it. This is Laurie Cutter and Melinda Russell, and they're going to be your hosts here, and I'll just let you take it from here.
Yeah,
all right.
So welcome everybody. We're really honored to have you here, and especially we have such amazing women up here in our panel today. I am Laurie Cutter. I'm with Champion Race Promotions, a business I started about a year ago, but I was born and raised in the sport. 40-year dream to live here in Knoxville, Iowa. My husband Charlie and I actually moved here in January in the middle of a snowstorm from Arizona to follow our passion of helping all of you just elevate your racing and your promotions and your sponsorship. Just here to help you with whatever you need. I do event planning. So I'm glad to be here. Melinda Russell, I'd like to introduce as our co-sponsor today. Melinda is from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I met Melinda 2 years ago at the Performance Racing Industry Show when she was there working with women, and she's got an incredible business. So she's the founder of International Women's Motorsports Association. She's a publisher of IWMA National News, and so she has an online magazine that's absolutely incredible. So many of you ladies have been in her magazine or will be soon.
Exactly.
And she does cover, men, where she doesn't just, it's not just to women only. We've got some incredible coverage in the whole sport, right, Melinda? Mm-hmm. And she also has Racing Girls Rock podcasts. So let's welcome Melinda as one of our co-sponsors for today. I want to introduce Lacey White. Lacey is born and raised in Knoxville. She's been with the Hall of Fame, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame that we're in today for over 10 years. She's the special events coordinator, and we are just honored to work with her. She has such an incredible passion for the sport, and she's so swamped, but she always has a smile on her face whenever you ask her to do something. I just got the pleasure of meeting Allison Marshall Mckinney. Allison? She's the president owner of Priority Management and Marketing LLC, and we will learn a lot about her experience today as we move forward. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Taylor, Claus, and Mclean. Taylor. Sorry about Taylor. She's the marketing program specialist for Driven to Save Lives and communications and branding director for Claus and Marshall Racing. And that's just the beginning, right?
Yes. You don't have to read it.
Next, we have Hannah Reichert. I had the opportunity of meeting Hannah this summer. We did an event in Pella on the square where we had 55 race cars surrounding the square. And I purposely picked that date when the World of Outlaws were here. I called up my contacts, Gina and Chris Delac back at the headquarters, and I said, I want you guys here. And next thing I know, I got this lovely lady and her team. She runs the fan engagement team with the World of Outlaws, and we're going to hear about her passion and her perseverance to get where she is today, right?
Yes, thank you.
Next, we got Alex Hill over here. Alex is a 360 sprint car driver. Mainly, is it ASCS that you travel with? That's your home, but you can be found racing just about anywhere, right? Yeah. Right. And she's a recent graduate. Is it in criminal justice? Okay. So we have Presley Trudson. Presley is our 410 sprint car driver. She also started off her racing career with Keith Coons Motorsports, racing midgets. And she's also found many times working on Rico Abreu's car. She also crewed for Chris Wyndham's USAC team. And now she's focusing on her wing sprint car career. So we're glad to have you here. We have Laurie Mccarl. Mccarl name is famous for Knoxville Raceway, and we don't get to hear what Laurie does behind the scenes, but she's the glue that keeps that family together. She's also the co-promoter of the Front Row Challenge that many of you went to on Monday night. A lot of hours, right, Laurie? Putting that together. Terry's her husband, and she's got two boys that run both Austin and Carson. So we will hear about life in the McCarl home. honored to have a Hall of Famer here with us, a National Sprint Car Hall of Famer inductee. We got Shirley Kerr. Shirley is the owner of Kerr Speed Shop. Probably many of you have heard of her, bought parts from her and her family. And we are honored to have her here with us today too. And then to end our introductions, we have Leanne Gurdum. Leanne is an EMT on our Knoxville Raceway Fire Rescue Team. She's also the mom and a crew chief of a young son that's racing outlaw karts. So we'll get to hear what it's like balancing all that with a young man coming up. So how we're going to run this, I've got some questions that we're going to ask the panel. They send in some questions and some answers. We're going to give them a chance to speak. We got about 50 minutes to try to get everybody. Again, ladies, if there's something that someone says that, you know, rings something in your heart that you want to share, just jump on in. We will take questions and answers afterward. So we'll run this for about 50 minutes, and then we have 20 minutes for questions and answers from you guys out there in the audience. So last of all, I just want to start this. I'd like to get a raise of hands. How many of you in here are either sponsors, car owners, drivers, or involved in a crew? It's of some sort. Come on, don't be shy. This will help them try to figure out how to answer our questions. And then how many of you would just say your peer love sprint car racing, you're fans, and you're here to learn a lot about what's going on? If that helps a little bit when you answer to know.
46 initials, that's it, what me is.
So I'm going to start off with Melinda Russell. Melinda, how did you come to start IWMA? And when did you get exposed to sprint car racing?
So in 2017, I had back surgery and I wasn't able to continue a lot of the things that I had done in the past. And I love racing. My son was a race fan from the time he was about 5 years old. And when he was 18, he took his graduation money behind my back and bought a dirt car. And he and his dad hid the car in the garage under some tarps. And my son would tell you if he was here that I didn't speak to either one of them for 2 weeks. Now, I don't remember that part, but I'm not going to you because that's probably something that I would have done. But anyway, he started racing in Macomb, Illinois on a little dirt track. Fast forward several years, in 1999, he moved to Michigan. And Ben had an on and off racing career for many years. And so he's the one that put the love of racing in my heart. And then as well as my family. So my 18 and 16-year-old granddaughters currently race. One races a template late model. One races a street stock. And we race asphalt. I know it's a dirty word, but I'm sorry. So, you know, sprint cars come and visit Kalamazoo Speedway or wherever, Hartford, but we don't have a place where we can go like you do, that we can see sprint car racing all the time. So I'm learning more about some of the rules that are different and how, you know, strategy and things. And I actually made my first trip to Knoxville about 3 weeks ago. I came, Laurie invited me to come. And it was amazing. I went to English Creek. I met so many kids. That's the future. That little guy right back there just won the other night. That's the future of this sport. And so anyway, long story, 2017, I wanted to connect with other women in motorsports. And I knew Facebook had a page for everything, right? Well, there was nothing for women connecting in motorsports. I did find one group. It was the Jennings Motorsports Auxiliary, and there were like 12 members. Like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And so I even Googled associations and all kinds of things, trying to find a group to connect with all of you women. And no, you were nowhere to be found. So
They were all doing their thing.
we were all on our own path, but there was nobody bringing us together. And so my family encouraged me to start an association, a group on Facebook. So I started, I put a post on August 17th, it's coming up, put a post on Facebook on a Sunday afternoon and said, I'm going to start an association or a group for women in motorsports. If you're interested in knowing more, tag yourself or someone you know. By the time I went to bed, I had over 100 names. And by the next night, and I'm furiously keeping track of them, by the next night I had over 200. And now we have almost 9,000 followers on Facebook that are real followers. They're these ladies right here. They're people. They're not purchased. They're people I've connected to, or that Laurie's connected me to, or whoever. And so my goal is to have a place where women can get together, you know, reach out and say, hey, I need help with this. Do you know anybody I could talk to? Or just a place where they can go on Facebook. I'm not as good as Instagram. I need you young girls to help me. But how, you know, a place where you all women have a lot of issues that the rest of us don't have. The men don't have. No offense. I always say I love the men, but I'm all about the women. So, you know, we do things that and deal with things that other people don't in racing. And so I just wanted a place where we could connect. I have a publishing background. I had a local weekly newspaper for 10 years, so I thought I'd do a magazine. So I do a digital online magazine all about women in motorsports. I was on a podcast with a couple guys doing some interviews, and they kicked me out because they said my section of the show was the most popular. And so they said, you really should have your own. And I don't know if they just didn't want me anymore. They say that's not true. But anyway, so I have Racing Girls Rock podcast and events are the next thing. So last year we wanted to do events. I had about 15 events scheduled at NASCAR tracks. That's kind of my wheelhouse, and I know people in that area. And of course, good old COVID canceled everything. So hopefully 2022, you'll see me at Knoxville for another event. You'll see me at NHRA, NASCAR, any place that really wants me to come. And the purpose of that is to invite women to the sport, because they think that it's just for you. Where's your wife? Oh, she's home. Why is she home? Well, she thinks racing's for me and my buddies. It's not. Look right here. It's not. And so the events are to encourage women to come to a race. We know that if we can get them to the track, are they going to come back?
Probably.
Are they going to come back? Probably. And you're going to have a fan. So that's the purpose of IWMA, is to celebrate, inspire, and connect women in motorsports.
So these ladies here on the panel could be ambassadors to your program like I am. And so explain how that would work just really quick. You know,
Okay.
What would that role be? Because there's a lot of other,
Okay.
our audience is just full of people that could help, you know, direct us, influence us, help women get connected,
Okay.
because she can't be everywhere, right? And you guys are all in
I've
different
been trying
places too.
Not working very well. So we are membership based. You know, nothing's free. You're in the motorsports business, you know what things cost way better even than I do. And so we are membership based. We have yearly or lifetime memberships available. And to members, they're offered to be an ambassador for me. And what that is, you're my eyes and ears. So World of Outlaws, if you were, Hannah, if you were my ambassador, you know, you could send me an email and say, hey, you need to contact so-and-so I met at the racetrack. Or we just had a young gal come and race, and whatever it might be, you know. Same thing with the Claus, and you know, I know you're involved with a lot of different things. You come across women, I'm sure, all the time. So you would be my eyes and ears. And you say, well, what do I get for being a member? Well, you get some discounts with preferred partners. You get the magazine to your email. And we're also developing a toolkit resource kind of page where you're going to have access to articles on things like social media and personal development and all different kinds of things like that you can get on and read at your leisure, that maybe can help you with some issues you're having or whatever that might be. And so we're got some other things in mind. Laurie and I have been brainstorming while I've been here the last couple of days. And so anybody that wants to join before Sunday at midnight and will be really appreciated, not only because I'd love to have more members, but I'll send you a t-shirt and a little goodie bag different from the one you got today. I won't duplicate. And if you want to be an ambassador, you don't have to be a driver. You know, my magazine articles, I had somebody ask me, well, who famous have you interviewed? And I said, well, Samantha Bush, but most of the people in my magazine you've never heard of. because there's thousands upon thousands of women who have great stories and they love racing of whatever kind. And you don't have to be famous and you don't have to be the driver, because it takes all the things that all of you do and that Laurie and I do and what all of you out there do. It takes all of us. And so I love telling people's stories on the podcast and in the magazine. And I'm always looking for names of people to interview and talk to. So did I answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. And if you ladies want to connect with Melinda afterwards too, love to get you covered and you know what she's doing and stuff. So it's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Melinda. Thank you. So Allison, as an infant, you were went into racing. So share your family history and your vast experience of some of the jobs you've had.
I was born in January, and 3 weeks later, I was in a motorhome on the way to Florida for Speed Weeks. So my dad ran out of fuel on the way. There's a long stretch between Texas and Florida. He drained the fuel out of the race car, put it in the motorhome, made it a little bit further, and then finally admitted that he probably should have stopped for gas. And so had to leave my mom and I on the side of the road and go get fuel. And the story is a lot longer. It involves an ambulance. They brought him back, and they were going to deliver someone else, but they brought him back on the way. So stories like this seem to happen a lot back in the day before the even before I was born, a little bit after the world development started. But it seems like there's that group of racers back then who were true outlaws before there was a world of outlaws, and they all opened up speed sport to see who was paying the most and figured out their schedule. And if they decided if something got rained out, well, if you're going to go here, I'm going to go here. We can both make good money. And so but just growing up hearing those stories is just what really got me just passionate about the sport. So
Can you
my
describe
dad
your job,
is,
what you're doing now?
yeah. So, well, I knew growing up that I wanted to be involved in the sport, and I was trying to figure out the best way to do that. And being a female back, like when I was in college, it was like, there's not that many opportunities. Now there's a lot more opportunities. There's a lot more jobs like you see Hannah doing, and a lot more things that are more visible and easier for people to see what women can do in the sport. Back then, it was more that you were either, you were dating someone or married to them, or you were, a kid just traveling. So I went to University of Texas in Austin and did some internships, and I was actually lucky enough that my dad connected me with Gary Geeler. He's standing in the back of the room. But Gary was a writer in the sport and had moved to the Texas Motor Speedway communications staff. And so I did internships with them for 2 different summers. So what was great about that was that I got exposed to not just the dirt track that they had there, but also I was able to work the NASCAR events, the IndyCar events. There were concerts. I mean, there was a lot that happened at that facility. So I got to be a part of all of that. And then when you graduate in May, it's a horrible time to get a job in racing, because if there is one open, there's a reason.
Yeah.
So you don't really want that one. So the Indy Racing League, as it was still called then, they really needed an extra staff person and didn't have the budget to really do it. And so Ron Green was the director at the time, and he told me, he said, he's like, I'll fly you to the events if you will, just come work, like learn, meet as many people as you can. So I did that to finish out that year, and went to PRI that year and did a few interviews, and I actually was offered 2 different jobs. I got offered one on the IndyCar side to do PR and sponsor stuff for them. And then Ganassi Racing actually said, would you fly to Charlotte and interview with our team there? They also have an opening that we think you might be good for. And so I actually was offered both of those jobs, and I just, in the end, I mean, Charlotte felt more like home to me. It felt more like East Texas, where I grew up. So that's the route that I chose to go. So Ganassi Racing was my first job. And then I moved over and I was Kenny Wallace's business manager for 5 years. Yes, yes, he is exactly like he seems all the time. I mean, just the biggest heart. So I'm still basically like one of his daughters. His girls were young when I was working for him. So I worked for him and Kim for 5 years. And then he asked me, he said, what do you want to do next in the sport? He said, I'm transitioning, you know, more where I'm going into save money mode instead of spend money mode. So he's like, think about what you want to do and let's figure out what your next steps are. So I was engaged at the time, and we knew that we wanted to have kids. I already had, or I was going to have a stepdaughter. And so I was like, I want to work for a woman in the sport who knows that you can be a mom, still do your job, and still be passionate about the sport. And so I told him that I wanted to work for Kelly Earnhardt. And so she just happened to need someone in her sponsor department. And so I was at Junior Motorsports for 5 years. And so I did not mean to do it, but I started a job at Junior Motorsports. 2 weeks later, we got married. The next week, we closed on a house. And so it was all of those things happening at once that's where I feel like the women's support really comes in, because, you know, Taylor will call me and she'll say, like, she's calling me on her way driving from Indiana Donor Network, driving to the race shop to go do something, and she's trying to figure something out. So I'm like, okay, what can I do to help you while you're driving? So,
That's great. You have that collaboration going.
yeah, having that female support, and that's, I mean, she's always been someone in the sport like that for me too. So now her son and my son race outlaw carts together.
We just met, met him.
So now we see each other at those tracks. But and then from there, I went to work for Danica Patrick for 7 years. I was her. I handled all of like the sponsor and the branding side of things. So there were two of us. The other girl that's her business manager, Haley, handled more of like the personal side of things and stuff. She had come from the IndyCar side, and so we worked together on all things Danica. So that was an opportunity to just have vast experience. I mean, between her hosting the SBs and just huge events, that she transcended the sport and is a celebrity in addition to being a driver. And so I kind of have a different perspective on different ideas in different areas of the sport. So I like to challenge sponsors to be outside of their comfort zone and try something new.
Yep, that's awesome. That's what I
So
really
are
like.
you responsible for GoDaddy being a household name?
I'm not responsible for that. When I came to Junior Motorsports, GoDaddy actually had Dale Jr. and Brad Keselowski were part of that deal, and so that's how the deal then evolved for Danica to come over and run. It was the Busch Series or Nationwide Series. It transitioned to Nationwide back then. Yeah. So yeah, but they had some crazy outlandish ideas, but they worked. I mean, you know, they made people know who she was. And the one thing that I will say is that she always says, because people would always ask her later on, you know, why'd you do the cover of this magazine, or why'd you do this or that? And I mean, her answer was always the same. She never did anything that she wasn't comfortable with. She used the things that made her different. She likes being different in the garage area instead of being like everyone else. So she took that on as a positive. So she said, you know, would I go back and do those same things now at the age she is now? She's like, no, but I also don't have to. So, you know.
So your husband Ryan's in the sport as well. Do you want to share what he does? Like,
yeah,
he's in the audience.
Yeah. So my husband Ryan. So we met, you know, in the garage area, because where else do you meet someone that understands that you're gone like 5 days a week, you know? So he's worked through every level of the NASCAR ranks, crew chief. I mean, tire changer. My friends from college didn't understand how he jumped out and played in traffic, changed tires on the road. But now he's the director of competition for the SRX Racing Series.
It's a great series.
Great.
So glad that
14 race cars between January and June, and then traveled 6 weeks in a row and repaired them all.
awesome.
Ryan, raise your hand. I didn't see your hand. Oh, yeah, okay. There you
So you said something I want to just bounce off of Laurie Mccarl real quick, because you mentioned, be awake over there. You mentioned, you know, where else do you find someone that understands racing? So Laurie, you know, you've got a husband, 2 boys racing. What advice would you share with the audience?
I met Terry when I was 12 years old. We were in junior high, so we didn't meet at the racetrack.
It takes a special.
But it does take a special person, I suppose. My boys just are married, and they met their wives at the racetrack. Well, Kirsten married Delansky, so they grew up together. And Austin is married to Alyssa, and she grew up in Knoxville. So they knew each other when they were younger, but then they would hang out at the racetrack a lot. So she understood where we're at every weekend. And that's hard for kids, you know, dating and growing up, especially, you know, like the boys, you know, dating, they couldn't go out every Saturday night. They were here every
Right.
Saturday night. So, and then they were in the race shop every other night. So
Right.
you have to have somebody that understands that it takes a lot of time.
And that could be the same with Alex and Presley. You're just
Yeah.
the reverse, right? I mean, have you had issues in that area of just having even friends that really understand
Yeah,
that you're not trying to spend time with them?
I feel like it's like having two separate lives. Like you have your
Oh,
life
yeah,
when
for
when you go to school, you're like a normal person, but they also never see you and they're like, what do you do? And I feel like
How do you hang out with us on
yeah,
the
like,
weekends?
you know, and I feel like it becomes a part of your life. Like racing is what we all end up doing, you know, so you have two separate lives, but ultimately like you kind of end up picking this one because you
Right.
love it so much.
So I have a question for you two girls, since you're the young, no offense, young ones on the panel. A lot of I wasn't even looking at you. So, you know, I do a lot of stories in the magazine and I send a questionnaire and one of the questions is, you know, what do your friends think about you racing? And it amazes me how many times I've heard the answer, I don't really have a whole lot of friends. My friends are mostly guys at the racetrack. And a lot of other girls don't understand that you don't want to go get your nails and toes done on Thursday because you're going to be in a race suit on Saturday. You know what I mean? Or they just don't understand that all the things that you are passionate about. And do you find that it was hard to get your friends to understand what you do, or do they follow you? Do they come and watch you?
I feel like I end up just having my friends in the racing world. I feel like that's where you meet your friends
And
for
I
life.
can step
you know?
into that.
Okay.
Actually, the men are so much easier to get along with.
That's true.
You know, like through my life, I've always enjoyed the guys and their help. And there has been times, you know, that I couldn't have really got in or out of it without the men.
Right.
And so I've always thought the men were the greatest.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times there's drama.
Drama, yeah.
Drama at the racetrack.
With the other group.
For the girls.
So I've always enjoyed the guys too.
Okay.
Oh, the guys are good for drama too.
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
See, I never got into that. I just had them as good customers. I love them.
That's good.
I can add too, even as a wife and a mom or whatever, that's all we ever did. So it was hard for me to have friends. My girlfriends would get together and go on girls trips for the weekend. Well, I can't do that. You know, and after a while, they quit asking. Because they know you're not gonna go.
Right.
You know, and especially with three of them, this is where we always were and what we're always doing. So it's hard for me to have friends outside of here. You know, there's a few that have, you know, that stuck by, you know, the ones that you've been friends with for 30 years,
Yeah.
but it's hard to make new friends because
Right.
you meet somebody and you know, hang out or talk for a little while, but then they go do things on the weekends and I can't go. So they just kind of do their
would
thing
have
and I
to-
do my thing.
I would have to agree that most of my closest friends they work at the track.
Right.
Or they're involved because my son races. So it's not just we race on Saturday night. It's we race on Friday night at English Creek and then we come to Knoxville and I work at Knoxville. So, I mean, it's just an every weekend.
Yeah, and it turns into almost every day kind of thing. Like,
Right. It
it's-
is,
yeah, you're
you know.
either going to the races, coming home for the races, getting ready to go to the races.
Yeah,
So,
right.
It's always doing
It's a
something
never ending
crazy.
cycle.
Yeah, it's never.
But then the difference is too, is that all of the people in racing that you really spend time with and that you're really close to, they are your family. Like,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
become,
because
you
they
know,
understand
Yeah.
what they,
That's
why
what
you
I always
do what
found
you
out.
do.
You
Yeah.
know, you lose so much of your weddings and funerals and reunions and stuff because you're out on the road. You know, you have to
Yeah.
go on the road. And
that's why everybody has the same anniversaries.
Yeah.
On the same
Awesome.
They use the wrong one at the same time.
gotta be there. I hadn't thought of that.
I have to add to that. I
Yeah.
know, starting working here, with the Knoxville Nationals and the induction ceremony weekend that we have in June, it's like a big family reunion
Right,
when
yeah.
people come in. I mean, you know, I've met family members that are friends who become my family because this is my life. And when they come, it's just a big, giant family reunion.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, to that message, I have to retire from the speed shop last year, and I come to Knoxville to meet the old racers.
Yeah.
Because I'm from the old.
Yeah.
You girls think you're from the old time. I was there. I loved it, and so I come here to meet my friends.
So
I
surely
don't
you're-
know the young people.
Since you're talking about there, your share your racing history. How did you get involved in the sport and your business? And if you speak up a little so they can hear
I
you.
was a little older. I was married. Chuck Taylor was awesome. He loved racing. And we couldn't afford it like nobody else. We couldn't afford it either. So we just, he opened a speed shop, worked full time and booked a speed shop. And I was a farm girl. Heck, I didn't know crap about nothing. And, so I would keep it open during the day for him and then at night. And so then Rick Purple really entered into our life at that time because he was the Buckeye Traveler. And he talked us into traveling to Texas for the first World of Outlaw shows and stuff, you know. And we just grew from there. And really, our traveling, like you girls know, like I heard Sunshine over there say the traveling, even though you're getting beat, was still good for you because that's where you learned to know all the racer owners. The owners were my
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
They kept the lights on?
oh yes, they kept us out there.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that was and I had so many stories, but I can't even start them. I took my children, Mickey and they grew up on this traveling deal with nobody. Got to get to the racetrack, sleep in the truck. Oh, we did it all with all them old guys you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm sure Rick Ferkel didn't have to talk you too hard into it.
Oh,
I mean,
he's
I've
such a
heard,
great guy,
yeah.
and he was such a
but the
bitter
ladies
guy.
love Rick.
Yeah.
He's charming, I'm
He
sure.
still
Yes.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very easy to talk you into something.
He was a great guy, and like you said, he was easy, but he's caring. That's what it is, and he loves people, and he loves the Lord. And he was great to be with.
So as a woman in business, Shirley, what is your one go-to nugget, maybe to all of us in the room here, about owning a business in motor racing?
Well, from our standpoint of view, we never had the money to begin with, so we had to build it as we went. And so we did build a good inventory, and luckily we had the inventory when at that time all they could do was order like for Speedway, but we're going back 50 years, you know. So anyhow, a good 45, and so consequently they could come into our shop, even though we were a little shop in town, and find it and look. Oh yeah, this is what I need, you know. So I guess inventory. And like I said, our traveling really introduced us to a lot of people, a lot of car owners and so forth. And being honest. I mean, they like to know if you got it or not, you know, just really being honest.
It's great. Anna, let's move over to you real quick.
Okay.
Right over there. And I know you'd love to get the crowd going. And
Should have brought some shirts to throw.
there you
She's
go.
good at it.
Some cornhole.
Oh, yeah, I'm really good at it. I'm not, I'm terrible.
So maybe you could share what like your typical day is like working with the World Outlaws during the day, in the evening. What kinds of activities do you find yourself doing?
So we have our fan engagement team and our fan zone. We have several games set up out in the Midway. So come see us. We're by the World of Outlaws merch trailer, and we have 2 sets of cornhole boards. So we set those up just to have as a contest. You come over and throw 4 bags. We'll give you prizes. You can also try the VP Fuel Jug Challenge, which if you haven't seen it before, you hold a VP Fuel Jug in each hand out to the side for as long as you can. So it's arm day every day. So we set that up during the day and have that operate before the races. And then for me, I break away and go conduct opening ceremonies, which is so cool. Normally the dash draw, and then the whatever challenge we're doing, whether it's the fuel jugs or the suit up challenge, and then throw shirts and like you said, get the crowd going. So it's all about fan interaction and getting people pumped up, and it's a normal, that's a normal day. I'm really lucky to call it that.
Hannah and I got a chance to work together this summer. In June, we did the race night down on Pella, and she said, I'll come there, and wasn't even sure what she was getting into, but she did an amazing job. I just said, here, run the stage for me. We have some interviews that we're doing and stuff. And we just loved having you there. It was really great. But this role is kind of new to the Outlaws, isn't it?
It is. The fan engagement team is new this year, so it's
How
really
did that
cool
come
to be part
about?
of it. There are just a lot of, opportunities, I think, to, like we're talking about, have fans come back, so we interact with kids and just make it a more immersive experience and create, like, fans I've seen at other races are here, you make friends, and so it's a more kind of like that family feel with World of Outlaws staff when we want to engage fans too. So that was the background of it, and now we're just growing it, everywhere we go, adding games and more interactive pieces. It's really fun.
So there's a piece in your questions that you sent back to me talking about perseverance. You didn't just land this job.
No.
Kind of like, Allison was sharing, and Taylor, you started and you had a dream, you had a vision of what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Share a little bit so the people in the audience maybe that, have a dream, have a passion to do something. What would you encourage them about that?
Yeah, so I grew up as a drag racing fan. That was, what I shared with my dad. Those were my weekends. And around the time I was in college, I was a journalism major, but I didn't really want to be like a news anchor or anything. I thought, I want to work in motorsports. So I got a foot in the door at Las Vegas Motor Speedway hosting video updates. But that was basically like an intern level thing right after I graduated. And I really wanted to just be there all the time. So I kept trying to pick up roles out there. Eventually I was the victory lane interviewer at the Bull Ring, which is an asphalt short track out there. And I still kept trying for things. So I ended up getting in at the NHRA events out there, hosting like longer Q&As with drivers. And it just kept hacking away until about 4 years into chasing that dream, I was hired full-time in sales and marketing at LVMS and had all those other roles together. So that took a long time to put together. And then moving on to the next thing, I really wanted to work for NHRA. And that took about 4 years too. And just kept slinging them resumes, just knocking on as many doors as I could and getting as much experience on the way to get there. And then, last year had its challenges, and unfortunately my role in NHRA went away. And sorry if I get emotional, it's still really hard because I didn't know what was going to happen. Sorry.
Well, that's the
I felt it was going to come out.
That's the passion.
And I was living in California, and I thought, oh no, I'm not in Indy, I'm not in Charlotte. Like, who's gonna bring me across the country for that? And I remember the day I got the email saying, like, we want to talk to you. And I was working seasonal retail at that point, just to make ends meet. And I remember thinking, I'm gonna be okay. So sorry, I knew it was gonna happen.
Should have brought some tissue.
It's almost been a year to the day that I lost that job. And so it's still kind of raw. But the fact that I landed here, doing what I do, getting to cry in front of all you, it's really cool. So that is my, my whole story is just keep fighting, keep going. That even, when I was just building a career, had to keep knocking on doors. And then when I was in a position where I didn't know what was going to happen, still had to keep pushing. And so that's the best thing I can say.
Taylor can talk about adversity, working through the tragedy. How did you turn the tragedy in your family into this beautiful lesson?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like I've been a race fan my entire life, but I don't think I really became a fan until we lost Brian. And it was more of just, we went to the dirt tracks growing up. My mom and dad would set up a little play area for us at the quarter midget tracks. We'd spend all day there. I would play with my brother's friends, and that's where I made my friends. And it was just kind of a part of my life. But I didn't really realize how much I loved the sport until we lost Brian. And I remember we were driving actually here on the way home from the hospital. And people ask me all the time, they're like, you went to a racetrack right after your brother died. We're like, yeah, but this is where our friends and family were. This is where our community of people were. And so, I was kind of in between jobs at the time and just graduated college, not really sure what I wanted to do. And I got a ping on my phone for Indiana Donor Network. And that's the organization that does organ donation in Indiana. And we had just left the hospital where Brian donated his organs and tissues. And so it was this weird mixture of things. And so over the next couple months, we reached out to Indiana Donor Network just more for grief services and to kind of get through
that piece. And so they actually had started a racing program already that honored a race car driver that lost his life. And one thing led to another, and I ended up, being able to not only honor Brian every single day, but also be in a sport that I love so much and that has given our family, some of the things that, we can't even explain. And so I'm very fortunate to get to do what I do. And so that's one piece. And then the other piece is working with a race team and being able to, kind of be creative. And I really feel like I finally found my niche of who I am and what I'm doing and my purpose in the sport. And, I hope that when I leave the sport that we left it better than when we came into it. So.
It's a beautiful story. So like Hannah and like Allison, what would you share to people who have a passion about something and feel like giving up?
Yeah, I mean, it's just honestly, take the time to make connections with people, because I feel like I'm in the position that I'm in now because of the people that I know and the people that, I have taken the time to treat kindly and make sure that, it's reciprocated. And so I think, making those connections and fueling those connections, it really does, open so many doors. And I think that, keeping a group of people around you that really believe in you and support you is amazing, because without my support system, I would not be here today. And I know my family feels the same way. But also, we have been very fortunate to align ourselves with the right people who truly care about us as individuals and what we want. And I think that makes an entire world of difference.
Exactly. And I think as far as I have tried to help coach some of the younger drivers and stuff, it's just your integrity is so important. Relationships. If you don't have those two, it's hard to be successful in anything.
Well, and I think as women too, we are looked at under a microscope, and it's taken me until probably the last year or so to realize, if I'm going to be something and be credible in this sport, I really need to act like it and make sure that I'm doing the things to put myself in the best position, so that when there's people outside looking in, they can say, you know what, that girl knows what she's doing, and we trust what she's doing.
So you have a little saying that says,
be like Brian. Yes. We've kind of
tagline, but it's great. It
Yeah.
summarizes everything.
Yeah, we, not only from the organ donation piece, but Brian was just a huge influence in my life. And growing up with him, I think I took it for granted a little bit, and didn't realize how amazing of a person he was, because he was just my big brother to me. He was the one that teased me, that did all that stuff. So but he was so humble and gracious in everything that he does, and so I really just try to emulate him with what I do in the sport as well, and in life.
Great. So Alex, why don't you share a little bit about your racing career? You just graduated, share with the audience, what you plan on doing with a degree, how are you going to work that into your racing? And, just a little bit about your background. You're Canadian origin, right?
Yeah, I'm actually Native American and from Canada on a reserve called Six Nations. And they actually have the home track there is the Schwingen Speedway. Some of you probably know about it. And yeah, so that's my home track, just 10 minutes away from where I live. And yeah, I just graduated with a degree in criminal justice with a minor in psychology, and not too sure what I want to do with it. And I'm just riding along, racing. Yeah, I don't know. Just living life.
So where did you graduate from?
California State University in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had advice to a younger person that's trying to start out in racing, whether it's female or male, and they're running like Leanne's son, a cage cart, what would be, we asked Presley this the other day, what would you advise them to do? Where they go right into a sprint car, or go into something and then into a sprint car, from your experience?
So what I did was I went outlaw cars like QRCs, and then I was in those for a while, and then I went into a 600 micro, did that probably for like a year and a half. Then our home track is Schwingen, start doing these crate sprints, and it's just like a 305, I guess. And so I start doing that in like 2014. And then I was racing also 305s in Ohio, going back and forth. And then, yeah, I started racing or was racing on Fridays and a weekend, then drove like 5 hours to Attica or Fremont every Saturday. And then oh yeah, I went through fire racing and then did that. And then did only like a year in the crates and then just went full 360s. And I did some 410s here and there, like when the Outlaws would go to Schwiegen, I did those shows, but haven't really been in a 410 too much, but I'd like to.
Yeah. So that's your next step.
Yeah, maybe in a couple years. The last couple of times I've driven a 410, it's made my stomach drop.
No.
I'll ease into it.
So Presley, do you want to share, like, you were mentoring somebody that's a younger age? You had some good advice here tonight, Adriana. Maybe there's some other folks in here that like to hear that. What would you recommend for next?
I feel like it's a combination of partially like where you grow up. Like I grew up right at the Canadian border in Minnesota. And so 4 years ago, I didn't know what the Chili Bowl even was. You know, we don't have midget racing, non-wing racing, 360 racing. We don't have any of that. So I'd never experienced that. It was mostly fender racing. I know, terrible word here. And fender racing and then 410 sprint cars. And so I feel like if you're growing up in places where you only have certain types of cars to maybe race, it's a little bit different. Everyone has a different path for sure. But also you have to kind of look at things too now where some people look at it like, am I going to get more exposure maybe in outlaw carts or micros, or, you know, do I want to go race for this team that I really idolize and they race micros? What is going to be the best way for them to notice me with other racing? It just kind of depends on everyone's, you know, end goal and the whole thing. But I think throughout all of it, the reason we all kind of start is because, you know, maybe you do because your family does, or it's a way to spend time together. And so I think ultimately we end up in the same place. So it doesn't really matter. We all have different paths, however you end up starting. You know, somehow seem to end up here anyways. You know?
So do you think it's important, like, you know, Leanne, your son's, you know, they're 14, 15?
14.
So, you know, who knows? He might be thinking about climbing the sprint car soon.
He already is.
Would it be nice, you know, maybe not just women only, but have a way to connect these younger drivers, you know, to somebody that can mentor them? Would that be helpful for you as a mom if you had a Presley or an Alex or, you know, even a sponsor and owner?
I'm trying to figure out how to watch him race while working. That's gotta be different, being on the safety crew, you know, and then having your son out.
I hope you never have to go to his wreck.
Yeah.
Rough.
Send Charlie.
He's got 2 more years though. He won't be 16 until the end of after racing next year. So. And my brother is also involved in racing.
Okay.
He, you know, has a couple, you know, Devin Klein.
Right.
And, so he's got opportunity to actually get into it. So
And having someone to network with maybe outside the family could be important. So I have just a couple more questions and then we'll have you ladies ask some questions to yourselves. First of all, Lacey, big weekend for you. Getting any sleep?
No.
No. We have a golf tournament tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
Yeah. So share with the audience, you know, some of the stuff that you're most enjoying, right? Especially this week.
Oh, this week. What do I?
And,
Well,
you know, and your job in general.
well, the people.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy the most about my job is meeting new people and welcoming back all the people that come in that I see every year. You know, their family. And, you know, we talked about that before. That's the biggest thing that I love about my job is just the people. But yeah, this week is crazy busy. We get here at 8 a.m. and it's on, you know, we have to help each other out. And I never know if I'm going to be scrubbing a toilet or handing flyers out or running an auction. You know, obviously, you know, that there are things that I have to do, but when you work for a nonprofit like we have, you kind of just step in and do what you got to do and get it done. And since we are limited on staff too, yeah, we help each other out as much as we can. So,
Right.
right.
Now, are you still responsible for getting the raffle car out on the road? Right?
I
That's
am.
your job, so
That's my job.
Lacey takes that car, loads it up, and travels all the way to Pennsylvania, Ohio, and
California.
so what's it like being on the road? Because this is a question a lot of you ladies are, you're younger, you're out traveling by yourselves. What's it?
Everybody's like, oh, you have the best job in the world. That's what I get all the time. Oh, you get to see so many great places. Yes, yes. I do get to see a lot of great places, but those great places have 4 turns and are in a circle. I don't get to go to, when I go to California, I don't get to go to the Golden Gate Bridge, or, I don't get to see a lot of stuff that I'm so close to, just because your schedule is so grueling. I might be at the track until midnight and have to load up the sprint car into the trailer and then wait for everybody to get out so I can get the truck and trailer out of the track to get back to the hotel so I could sleep a little bit before I have to get up again and get back to the track to unload the sprint car and then set up my stuff. So yeah, you don't see a whole lot, but yeah, it's great. I mean, I do get to see some amazing dirt tracks.
Right. But as from a safety standpoint, for just a woman on the road by herself, there's a couple of you out here, right?
It was a lot easier in the older times. And people really did help, and they did assist you and try to make it easier for you. I had, like I said, my first husband passed, and so really I didn't have anybody to raise job and 3 children. And so they were my workers. I can remember times when we were up in Minnesota going to a race and tire came off. So we tried to find it, but then we realized that maybe we shouldn't find it because it would have crossed the road, down the other side. So we had to go in the truck stop. The kids all had to get their first showers in, truck slave station. And another time, when the women you girls are a lot more durable than they think.
Yeah, I get some funny looks getting out of my big truck. Driving it across the.
Well, they got used to me. One time we had a flat tire, another flat tire, and oh my God, we forgot to jack.
Oh.
So we had to get the gears out of the truck and stack them like a permit. I pulled that trailer on there and got it out. You can do it. But nowadays you don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
And really the trust is not there. See, today you can trust people to help.
The trust.
Yeah. See, now today you can't do any of that.
So have any of you ladies that have been traveling by yourself for the years had any kind of real issues that you've been concerned about? I mean,
I have somebody in every state to call though.
Yeah.
That's the thing,
where the
is
cell
that now you're
phones are
connected
for.
to so many different people that it's, you call one person and you say, well, I'm here, like, who can I call here? Oh, well, and there's somebody there in 10 minutes.
And
I mean,
sometimes
like,
several people you have to call them.
Yeah.
So the importance about being connected.
Absolutely.
Keep your cell phone charged and keep your NOS energy.
Yeah.
I usually have 2. So I can charge everything and from that. I know so many people too have called me and said, I'm stuck here or I have a flat tire or whatever. I'm like, hold on. I just figure out where they're at and you call somebody. So.
Yeah, one of the things Bob Baker told me when I first started this job was, I'm not really sure I want you on the road by yourself. And I said, well, I think I'm a pretty tough chick. I mean, I think I can handle this. He's like, well, loading up the car and stuff, like, okay, a sprint car without a motor is still pretty heavy for one person. So I can usually find at least 5 people that will step in and help me load up that car. And, you don't see that in all entities of the world. Only in racing would you find people to just jump in and help. So.
Yeah,
Right.
that's not hard to find.
That's not hard to find.
That's always, you can always.
Yeah.
Racers are great people.
Yeah.
They do this because of their passion, because they love it, and because, they're just great people.
We're all.
You definitely learn over the years how to be resourceful.
Right.
Oh yeah. There's just things it's just life experience, and you just learn over the years things. But at one point I was the only female that traveled with junior motorsports. So it was 2 teams worth of guys, and the other rep that was with the other team. It was just happened to be a guy. And so everything it always came back to me.
Right.
It was if somebody was sick, if somebody cut themselves, if somebody needed to go to the care center. It's like if we're in a rain delay, we need to change our hotels, like all of that. It just somehow always ended up coming back to me, but that's okay because I like doing it. And then I knew that it was done the right way.
But you know, you're right. Everybody in the racing community helps everybody else.
Yes.
Right.
And you really don't hardly have to ask. Like, my son raced at English Creek, and it was just me and him.
Yep.
And now I had to learn. I had to learn a lot this year about outlaw carts.
Right.
But I did my best, just for the fact that my son loves to race,
Right.
to get him out on the track.
It's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
So people want to help you. They just
They
come
did.
over
The
and
last
they
time.
just start.
Yep, the last time he raced, his exhaust busted. And I'm like, oh no, we don't have another one. Well, thank goodness there was 2
Yeah.
trailers down.
Yeah.
I have one here. Go ahead and put it
That's
on and
great.
get your son back out
That's
there.
awesome.
So, I mean, everybody was great.
Yeah.
You know, always willing to help.
Great.
And I think, you know, and even knowing that I was doing it on my own with my 14-year-old and he survived. Because he knows everything.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
he's 14.
Yeah.
But everybody was
So
great.
I'm just got another 2 questions and then we'll open up to questions and answers and we can have everybody out of here in about 15 minutes. So I'm curious about safety, fire safety. We got Shirley in the audience, you know, who has sold safety parts over the years. You know, how has that, you know, changed? Alex and Presley, you know, have you ever been in a situation, you know, you've been upside down, you've been in a bad crash, and, you know, I want to bring Leanne into the discussion. You know, you're from the fire safety, you know, how does that all work? So Presley and Alex, you know, you've had situations where you've ended up upside down or something.
I hope I never meet the EMTs.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna say. I want to see you on the track.
Very nice, but she doesn't want to.
Very
nice, but I never want to meet
We don't ever want to see you guys either.
I think it's just changed a lot. I mean, even like, you know, you walk around the museum or, you know, even thinking about when I started, you know, it's changed so much. And that's the one thing where people are always trying to make things better.
Yeah.
You
Like
know,
the
it's-
hybrids and the,
Yeah,
and the
and
back
it's-
supports.
Yeah, and it's all
There's so
things to
many
help you, to
things.
keep you safe, you know, and I think over the years, everyone's,
The
you know,
helmets.
you just,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
you
fire
think about it,
suits.
and you think about everything that's been put into it. You know that people care, that's why they're doing it, you know, it's not just to sell you a product or, you know, I feel like nowadays especially, it's come more into the light that you're just trying to make different things better, and it's not that people are just trying to sell you things, but, you know, someone comes up to you like, well, you're not wearing fireproof socks. It's not because someone wants to yell at you or anything, but it's just because people care. And, you know, over the years, we've seen so many tragic things happen that's why we're all here. You know, you learn from past experiences. And I think it's just helped a lot that there's been, you know, more now. So lots of like race gear for women, you know, or things
More
more
fitted
tailored
or what-
to us. Yeah, that definitely weren't available even when I was starting racing, for sure.
Well, like even in the chassis and stuff, they're all good. You just all come together as a group. One of the biggest things that I really was impressed with was when they came out with torture tube stops on the end, so they can't walk. I was so happy with that, but I didn't find it hard. I thought it was good for you kids.
Yeah.
What about you, Alex?
Yeah, when I started QRCs, like I remember we used to just wear like the foam neck ones, and like I
Yeah.
couldn't even think of wearing that now. That's just crazy. to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's evolved and great to see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, don't want any more tragic things happening.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Do you
there's
have
still
any
a little,
input?
yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah,
say. I
is
think
there a
there's-
hole that you see that?
There,
can
I
still
think
be
there
met?
is definitely.
What do you wanna share?
I think from a series standpoint, from a track standpoint, I think that a lot of these series go to tracks that are in the middle of nowhere. Their ambulance staff has never seen a car crash. They don't know how to extract somebody from a car if it comes to that. So I think there's a lot of different things that from
You see
a
outside of driving.
yeah outside of driving
Yeah.
or that needs worked on. And I think, you know, it's especially after going through what we went through, there's been, you know, tragic things that have happened and people, you know, are like safety, 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 and then it dies off.
Right.
where we should be talking about this constantly and improving everything. And yeah, and I think too, you know, knowing it comes down to as simple as we've talked a lot to between friends and family, even knowing where the closest hospital is to that racetrack. Because we were put in a situation to ask what hospital we wanted Brian to go to, and I mean, what are we gonna say? Like, we don't know. Just get him
Sometimes
there.
closest isn't the best.
Yeah,
Right,
well,
yeah.
and that's what, you know, it's like those types of things, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think that it needs to happen sooner rather than later.
And try to encourage the driver to take their own responsibility as well. We heard yesterday in the fire rescue how many times they'll go spend money on, you know, their parts, but getting adequate top of the line safety gear, all the way down to the thermal underwear and the socks. A lot of them forego that. It's like,
It blows my mind. My husband and I have talked about this. It blows my mind that parents will go out and buy a brand new cart, a brand new outlaw cart chassis, and then their kids are wearing used safety equipment that don't fit them, that are, you know, that aren't right for them. It just, that just blows my mind. There are definitely certain things that you can absolutely, you know, like buy different parts and things like that that can be used, or that people outgrow and stuff like that. But the safety side of it is just.
Especially with kids, they grow so fast.
So
I had to
fast.
buy everything new,
Yeah.
suit, shoes, helmet,
Sometimes
because
I had to
nothing
twice a year.
fits.
right? Yeah, well,
Right.
Everything
We have a
bought.
rule at Claus Marshall Racing where our drivers aren't even allowed to fire a car off without being fully.
That's awesome.
You
You
know,
set-
and
you
I,
set
and
the
I think
top of the line.
it's the driver's responsibilities, and I think it's the teams as well that need to kind of take
Enforce that.
ownership in that as well.
So Leanne, from us fire safety, so Leanne's on the Knoxville Raceway Fire Safety Team, EMT here. So the conversation, you know, back to you is, what have you seen when you've gone out to these sites that you say, I wish they would fix X, Y, Z, or how do you correspond with the driver when you're out there that to make sure they're okay, to know like if there's two involved? Share a little with the audience.
Well, that's why we have 2 EMTs on the front ambulance. And so if there's more than one vehicle, you know, both ambulances will go out. And the majority of our firefighters are also paramedics or EMTs. So normally the first person that gets out to the vehicle is an EMT. And they're talking to the driver and asking them, are you okay? Are you hurting anywhere? Is anything going on? And, you know, they're giving the rest of us a thumbs up and he's good or whatever. You know, and we try to get the drivers to get in the ambulance to get a ride back so we can evaluate. They hardly ever do. It would be nice if they did, just because it gives us a chance to talk to them. You know, because then you run into those incidences where the driver walks back and then they're coming to get you a half an hour later because they're on the floor of their trailer. When, you know, if we would have just spent a few more times with them, a few more minutes with them, you know, we could have caught something. You know, and that's probably one of the biggest things. If they would just ride backwards.
You're talking to the wrong people because we agree with you.
Yeah. You know, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to, you know, you're not going to miss anything. It's just a couple minute drive from the track back to your trailer is all it is. In a cold ambulance, by the way.
Well, and the thing is that here, y'all have such an amazing staff that you've built over the years. I mean, my mom has told me that there were places that she literally would just pray that my dad wouldn't crash there because you knew that they're just that you just didn't have a good feeling, just, you know. So, and it's come a long way over the years with tracks working together, with tracks, you know, having a really experienced group, and then, you know, working with other tracks where those travel to help them with their events and stuff. But we've learned a lot from the NASCAR side of things. One of our people who's sitting right there, Robbie. Robbie and I, actually, Brian and I first met Robbie because he was our NASCAR medical liaison. And so obviously they have a lot larger scale budget and are able to lay those things out. But Robbie, I mean, his job was to know all of the drivers, to know, you know, all of their conditions, like anything that they had, they kept all that paperwork and information, but then also to have a relationship with the crew members and know the people that were on the road traveling with them. So, you know, Taylor and I talk about it all the time, that Claus and Marshall Racing is probably one of the most, you know, or one or two most prepared teams out there. But there's still some things that we don't necessarily, you know, even know that we've thought through, like medical information, keeping that binder in a secure location in the hauler to where the crew guys know where it is if they actually need it. Because if someone, you know, she can tell you pretty much anything you want to know about Tyler Courtney, but if someone asked her his blood type, it's like, ooh, no. You know, it's one of those things.
Especially if you're under stress.
Yeah.
Right.
And trying to think of that information, you're like.
And
you
some
can't.
people perform well under stress and some don't, and you don't know until they're in that situation.
Right.
So so things like that, formalizing those things, we've had a lot of conversations about it. The rest of the Claus and Marshall group have had a lot of conversations about it, and we're trying to do what we can to formalize it a little bit more and just provide some more information to teams and drivers. But you're right,
That could be a
the
benchmark.
the driver has to be an advocate for themselves, and they have to make sure that they communicate to the people around them. And so hopefully if enough people know the same information or the way to access that information, then it can be found. You know, there's enough catch-alls there. So
I think we had some really good answers today, and I just want to give the panel a big shout out and a thank you. Michelle, if you'd like to, I'd encourage you ladies to exchange information with each other, or either here or offline. But do we have any questions out here that you guys would like to ask the ladies up here?
Taylor,
Mhm.
do you feel that most tracks should bring up the safety stuff with the drivers meeting?
I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on that. I think it's more falls into the series hands to make sure that they're going to tracks that are fully prepared. And I don't know if that lies within the series itself or if that's more of like a track or a promoter thing. But I do know that something has to change there because, you know, there's been way too many instances where I've even questioned. I'm like, where's the nearest hospital here? They're like, let me get out my Google Maps, and I'm like, that's a problem. And we've been a part of races where we've actually left because we didn't feel the track was safe enough and things like that. And then it's just after going through what we've gone through, the need is there, and I think that it would make the sport a lot better. And for the drivers specifically, but also the families of those drivers. So
great. You had a question?
I had a question for Shirley, and we're sort of a similar generation. But what was it like running a speed business and a parts truck when women weren't allowed in the pits, which was in my lifetime?
Yeah, right. Amen.
Maybe not.
And we had to wear
you're the
white
only
pants.
Yeah, but
You weren't even allowed in.
I remember that.
At that Minnesota and Wisconsin deal, they had to have like.
Oh, yeah.
But anyhow, when I first got in, it was really a trip. But I really needed to be in the pits because I knew as Chuck was doing tires back then with steel wheels and so forth. So I really needed to be there. And Rima let me in as long as I stayed in the truck. And that was, I abide by that. And then, because I wanted to be there. And then I went to Chillicothe. And they weren't going to let me in no matter what. So I said, because that's when women's lib was doing pretty decent. So I said, okay, I'll just call it women's lib. I said, I'll have them down here before this race is over. Well, just stay in the truck then, Get out of that truck no matter what. But then it loosened up. So, but anyhow, that was a trip. Then I went to Wisconsin one time with my group and my children. Get up there, you had damn white pants. So I took them down to the TSC at that time or whatever it was, back then. And we all got them real baggy white pants. And sure enough, we got in. I look back over it, they were the best times.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah,
That was
great.
At the time, we didn't realize it.
Yeah, there you go. Looking back. Any other questions?
I have a question for the ladies who spend time cross disciplines, NASCAR and NHRA. How's our world as a motorsport professional women? Is it more challenging, less challenging, or while making progress? And is it like? I only know our world. Curious how you, what your perspective is.
I mean, I definitely think it's come a long way in the last few years. I mean, like in the last 10 years or so. But I think that what I struggle with and that what I would like to try and help the grassroots series do, I mean, in my opinion, it's the best racing product that there is out there. I mean, it's, so it's where I want to be, but just a few little tweaks here and there, just the communication with teams and drivers, and the communication with the fans is great. But a lot of times it's like, I think you end up finding out stuff on social media now. And so I think like having those stakeholders within the sport have more direct communication. So just going back to even like you were talking about the safety stuff, even if it's that when a driver is registering for that race, that when they get their email confirmation or whatever it is that's, confirmed that they're registered for this race, your money's been paid, then they get where the local hospital is, and here's the people that you should call. Like it just from a track perspective, from a promoter perspective, from a series perspective, I think just a few little things like that, just kind of almost over communicating could really go a long way in solving issues before they even come up. But
especially when it's things that aren't going to hurt in any way. It's only that over communication is never going to hurt anything for everyone to know that or have that information.
Oh yeah, because if you have that information, then hopefully 9 times out of 10 you won't have to use it. It's when you don't have it, it's when you're scrambling around and looking for it. But I would say in just in my opinion, from like on like the Outlaws level, like All Stars, USAC, it just seems to like it always goes back to you'll ask someone a question and say, so, whatever it is, like who handles marketing or something, and it kind of like always goes back to 1 or 2 people with each series, it seems like, that have the answers. And so I just think formalizing that communication a little bit more and getting some direct lines of communication to where it isn't always going back to the same person. Because I think like USAC, for example, if you ask anybody in USAC, who do I talk to about this? The answer is always Levi Jones. It does not matter what you were asking. I swear. But I'm just saying, it doesn't matter what it is. And it's just because Levi is the one that he's like got everything going on, and then he disperses it to other people. I've tried to tell him he should disperse it more to other people, but it's just funny because Taylor and I were working on the double races last year that at Gas City and Kokomo, and anybody that I was like, okay, well, if you just need like a logo, okay, we'll talk to Levi. And then like if you just, I'm like, Levi can't do all of it. Right. So that's the one thing that I would say that I've learned is just a little bit more formal communication and a distribution process, because I felt that on the NASCAR side, when teams learned something that they didn't hear it from NASCAR, they would hear it from an official in the garage or something like that. They almost felt slighted, like they almost felt like, well, why did the media person get the information before we did, or the fans get the information? So I think we've all got a stake in the sport, and we've all got that the more you feel like you're invested in it, the more you're going to fight for it, the more you're going to go the extra mile for it. So
when does NASCAR have stricter rules than what we do, you think?
On what?
Well, like
I mean,
officials,
some things
do they that you were talking about, like the hospital on your blood type and all that. Do they have all that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the drivers are required to, they go through physicals at the beginning of the year. So before they can even get their license, they have like a full battery of information that they have to provide. They have to do concussion baseline testing now. And keep in mind, this has all come a long way since Dale Earnhardt died. I mean, there were a lot of accidents right before that should have been a bigger wake-up call, but we didn't lose someone or we lost someone in a different way. And so it really took Dale Sr. for a lot of things to progress, I guess, faster, and NASCAR doesn't always get it right by any means, but they've evolved and learned over the years. And honestly, the best medical staff is the IndyCar team that travels with them. I mean, they have a doctor that travels with them at all times. So,
It's pretty neat.
yeah.
Did that answer your question? Anybody, does anybody else? want to
Sorry,
comment?
Brian got way more than he wanted on that one.
Good answer.
I can't beat you guys sometimes to, hey, we're gonna do this with rain out. Oh, we got that's already on social.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything from an HRA? Curious.
Well, I mentioned to Gina before that one thing I noticed when I was job hunting was that World of Outlaws has women in positions, like director positions and higher up. And that was something that I thought was really cool. You don't see that everywhere. So, you know, that is something that stood out to me, that it's a really cool time to be a woman in this sport, and like groups like this and panels like this. It's cool to see that. So for me, that was something I hadn't seen previously, and I really appreciate and think it's very cool.
I wanted to ask Lori something real quick. How do you cheer for?
Yeah.
Three.
When they're racing together.
Oh,
Side by side.
Just hold your breath.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't,
take
you
it
know
to
what,
that.
I don't know how, I don't cheer for anybody. The first person is leading, I guess. Like, you go, kid. But no, that's really hard. You don't choose there. You just, you know what you do? What I do is, honestly, I try to keep, I do this. The other night, it was just, Carson and Terry racing, and the feature was going, and I would go, okay, and then I was like, where the heck's Austin? And then I remembered he wasn't racing today. I panicked for a second. I was like, what happened? And I was like, oh, he's in the pits. You know, sometimes when there's just one of them at the racetrack, I remember like, this was so much easier.
Yeah.
Like, we thought this was hard.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Three, that's hard. But no, it gets stressful with the three of them, but I just try to watch the flagman as long as it stays green. I know everybody's good.
Yeah, there you go.
Probably pray a lot.
And tool a lot.
Yeah. Hopefully they
a lot.
load it all up in one piece.
Yeah, sometimes I just pick a spot on the racetrack. Okay, there we go. As long as it stays green, I just wait for, I count laps, like 2 to go, and then I can breathe.
So we have time for one more question. Anybody else have a burning question?
Okay, I'm gonna take it then. You didn't speak up quick enough.
Thank you.
Sorry. So the future of women in motorsports, where do you see it? You know, do you see it's a good place for women to be?
I heard a podcast just the other day that 40% of the fans that come into motorsports events are women.
I think it's higher than that.
Well, this is just recently, and they said,
Yeah.
just in the last 5 years, it's went up 10%.
Well, I
So-
think that the education's out there, and I really believe these young women and so forth are more aggressive, and they're gonna be more of them. It won't be like you have to argue to get.
Exactly.
God.
Any other thoughts on where you see, you know, when you just said about leaders? You know, I'm waiting for the first woman crew chief on a NASCAR team. You know, it's close.
It's close.
You know, you're
There-
seeing, I just
Did
spoke
they
to
make
Kara
her crew
Adams.
chief yet at Penske? There's a girl. I thought she might have been a crew chief on the Xfinity
I think
series.
so.
She's an engineer. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just was able to talk to Kara Adams, who does the tires for Indy. Amazing woman. And one of the things that she said was when she was wanting her job, the job that she has now, she had a different job, and she went to her boss and she said, what will it take for me to have that job? And he told her the education and these different things. She's okay. So she educated herself. She did what she needed to do. And she said, I'm going to make it so that he has to hire me because I'm the most qualified. And I think that's where, for me, when I talk to women, that's what I see. I see them saying, I want to run the World of Outlaws. I want to run this. I want to be in charge.
Geez, come on now.
What does it take?
What does it don't need all that.
What does it take?
Girls,
And
if you think you don't need that, you're crazy.
Yeah, but you know, what does it take for me to get there? And then do those things and have integrity and character, and you will get there. So
Well, I think it's important to keep telling people stories, and I mean, things like this and what you're doing, some of the features the World of Outlaws has done in highlighting the women who are behind the scenes, because, I mean, in any professional sport, it's always about the quarterback, or it's always about, the driver, but it's highlighting those people that are behind the scenes. I mean, like on our own side, you see what Sheldon does. Sheldon's out there, in victory lane and everything, but what's really cool is to see how he and Sam work together behind the scenes, and how they run their business within the business, So, but just highlighting things like that, and then also I just think us working together. So anytime that we can, if we can collaborate, or if we can, recommend another strong female for a position, then I think that is the most important thing to keep moving up that ladder. I mean, there's now a female who's the track president at Sonoma Raceway, Jill Gregory, and the first time that I worked for her, and Phoenix was first actually. Right. But the first time I worked with Jill, she was one of the she ran the Sprint sponsorship for the Cup Series, and then by working with NASCAR, she moved to NASCAR, and she's moved up that ladder. But she's been good about trying to fill roles, not only with women, but with a lot of diversity as well. So I think that, it's like anything else. It just takes a little while to do it. But the more that we work together and support each other,
the more assets we got. You all are doing a great job.
Well,
I'm
let's
just
give them
glad
a hand. I think
overall-
they're awesome.